So picture this. The story kicks off not with some grand plan, but with this just devastating piece of news. Nehemiah, he's a pretty high-ranking official, the cupbearer to the Persian king, living a life of comfort in the palace. And then this report comes from his homeland. Jerusalem, the city of his ancestors, is in total ruins, and his people are living in disgrace. Just imagine hearing that.
And here's what's so fascinating about his reaction. What do you think he does? Does he start drawing up blueprints, rallying supporters? Nope. His first move is completely personal and deeply spiritual. He just sits down and weeps. He mourns for days. And then he fasts and prays, not making demands on God, but actually acknowledging the failures of his own people. It's a really powerful, humble start.
All right, so we're moving from a prayer to a plan, from a palace official to a nation builder. But don't think for a second that this time of mourning was just passive. Oh no, it was the foundation for everything that came next. We're about to see Nehemiah transform, and it all kicks off with an incredibly high-stakes moment in front of the most powerful man in the world. So months pass, and Nehemiah just can't hide his sadness anymore. You know, for a cupbearer, looking sad in front of the king could literally be a death sentence. And sure enough, King Artaxerxes notices. He looks at Nehemiah and puts him right on the spot with this simple, direct question. What is it you want? I mean, talk about pressure. Everything, absolutely everything, is riding on what he says next. And in that split second, with the king staring him down, waiting for an answer, what does he do? Before a single word comes out of his mouth, he sends up a quick, silent prayer to God. It's this tiny little detail, but man, it's so important. This amazing blend of faith and practical strategy, that right there defines his entire mission.
And because he prayed, he was ready. When the king asks what he wants, Nehemiah doesn't just stammer and ask for some time off. No way. He lays out a fully formed plan. He's like, okay, I need official letters for safe passage. I'm going to need timber from your royal forest for supplies, and I'll need an official escort to make sure I get there safely. He had thought of everything. And guess what? The king grants it all.
So he gets to Jerusalem, but he doesn't roll in with a big entourage and start giving speeches. Not his style. Instead, he waits for the cover of darkness, and he goes out, in secret, to inspect the ruins himself. He's seeing the rubble, the burned gates with his own eyes. He knows you can't fix a problem until you understand just how bad it really is. It's only after he's done his homework that he calls everyone together. He stands before the leaders and the people and says, "Come on, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we won't be in disgrace anymore." He lays it all out, the problem, the fact that God's hand is on him, and the vision. And this isn't just about bricks and mortar, you guys. This is about restoring their dignity. And just like that, a city that was completely demoralized wakes up. All right, now we get to the part about building under siege. Because getting everyone inspired is one thing, but actually doing the work, that's a whole other story. This wasn't going to be some peaceful community project. It was a constant battle, with enemies on all sides just waiting for them to fail.
And the thing is, the attacks were coming from two different directions. You had the external threats, these powerful enemies like Sanballat and Tobiah, who were openly mocking them and even plotting to physically attack the workers. But then you had the internal crises. The project almost fell apart from the inside because wealthy nobles were exploiting the poor. It was causing this massive division and just a sense of hopelessness.
And this next part, this quote, just perfectly captures the reality. One hand did the work and the other held a weapon. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. You've got regular people, masons, merchants, even priests, slapping mortar on a wall with the trowel in one hand and holding a sword in the other. It's this unbelievable picture of resilience under constant life or death pressure. So when threats didn't work, his enemies switched tactics. They tried distraction. They kept inviting him to a meeting in a nearby village, which, let's be real, was totally a trap. And Nehemiah's response is just legendary. He sends back a message saying, "I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." Talk about a masterclass in focus. He's basically saying, sorry, not sorry, this mission is way too important to get sidetracked. So how long do you think this all took, with all the threats, the infighting, building an entire city wall? The answer is 52. That's it, 52 days. Against every odd you can imagine, they finished the entire wall in under 2 months. It was so unbelievable that even their enemies had to admit. Yet this had to be the work of God. So now we're talking about more than just a wall. This is about restoring the heart of a nation. Because Nehemiah understood something crucial. A city with strong walls isn't the same thing as a people with strong faith. The physical wall was just the start. The real work, rebuilding the nation's spiritual heart, was just about to begin. So the wall was finished. But was the work really done? I mean, think about it. The immediate threat is gone. The city is secure. But now the story takes a big turn inward. Nehemiah is basically asking, what good are these strong walls if the people living inside them are spiritually weak?
And you know what? The people's response is just incredible. They all gather together as one, and for hours, we're talking from early in the morning all the way to noon, they just stand there, listening as the priest Ezra reads from the law of God. They were literally hungry to reconnect with who they were supposed to be. Now, as they listen to the law, they start weeping. They finally realize just how far off track they'd gotten. But Nehemiah steps in and gives them this amazing piece of advice. He says, "Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." He's telling them that real strength doesn't come from feeling guilty or sad. It comes from a deep, unshakable joy in God. That's the real power source.
Okay, let's talk about the ongoing work, because restoration requires constant vigilance. It would be so easy to just end the story right there, right? The walls are built, everyone's celebrating, happily ever after. But the book doesn't do that. The final chapters give us a much more realistic, and honestly a more important lesson. The job of restoration is never ever truly done. So here's the timeline of this unfinished task. Years earlier, the wall is completed. Big victory. Then, Nehemiah has to go back to his day job, serving the Persian king. But sometime later, when he finally returns to Jerusalem, what he finds is, well, it's pretty discouraging. All that progress they'd made, it was already starting to come undone. And the problems were everywhere. I mean, the temple itself, the very heart of their community, was being misused. The Levites, their spiritual leaders, weren't being supported. The Sabbath was just another busy market day, and people were breaking the exact promises they had just sworn to keep. It just goes to show you, progress isn't permanent. It takes constant, intentional effort. And that brings us to the final, really powerful question of this whole story. What does true restoration require after the building is done? Because look, it's one thing to pull off a huge project, to build the wall. That's amazing. But it's something else entirely to maintain the integrity of what you've built, day in and day out. Nehemiah's story really shows us that true restoration, it isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous, daily commitment.